Hello everybody, this is D.H. Thorne here. I was told by a few friends that my ritual magic videos were very good, that they got a lot out of them, they were produced well, whatever, they enjoyed them. And they recommended that I start doing more videos more often. Um, I am not as comfortable on video as I am in writing. It's not that I can't speak well in public, it's really that I tend to go off on tangents and can have a difficult time staying focused. I'm not as good an orator as I am a writer. But with that being said, I'm going to take their advice. I'm going to start doing more YouTube videos about my own personal practices in magic and how I do things. Um, so without further ado, today's video is going to be very simple, but I'm going to have to try to stay on topic because it's a simple idea, but it can be a very complicated and deep concept to understand. I'm going to have to go on faith that if you work with this, if you work with my system and my ways of doing things, that you will intuitively start to understand where I'm going with these things. So hopefully I don't go off on too many tangents. Today's subject is going to be about making your own magical alphabet and your own magical system of writing. Now, if you are into the occult, you will probably notice that a lot of systems will have their own form of writing, their own form of pronunciation for different words, sometimes their own alphabets, their own symbology. And this is an important feature of creating magic for yourself. I am a very strong proponent that you should, once you've mastered certain basics, magic should become your own. If you study someone else's magic, you should be looking not at the specifics of what they're doing, but at the fundamentals that are behind it and try to learn from that. So the handful of magical books that I've read, I've used primarily as a way to see into the mind of that author to try to understand how magic works for them and see what parts of that can apply for me. I very rarely go out and perform their rituals exactly as written, and in the handful of times that I do, once I feel like I've gotten the point of what they're doing, I just start using that on my own and make my own versions of everything that they do. And probably the most potent way of doing this, of course, is to speak to demons and other entities and have them teach you what is right. And then you work from there. And this has actually been a point of validation for me, is that since I'm not very well read in magic, I have people who are scholarly in magic. They have read many books. They have correspondence with very respected people in magic, and they get back to me and they say, hey, you did it exactly right. Where'd you get that? And this is because of how I work magic in general. I go with the fundamentals and I use my intuition and I speak to entities and they guide me. And that's where it comes from. So magical writing is something that when you're reaching a point that's a little bit more than basic, when you understand how to enter a trance, when maybe you've evoked a demon or two, when you know how to get into these things pretty repeatably, okay? You've now made the step from I tried magic out and now I want to make this my life. Now it's time to create your own, in my opinion, your own magical writing system, because you should be creating and using your own magical journals, grimoires, and so on. So at this point, you really need to start thinking about ways to incorporate magic into everything you're doing here. Magical writing, a magical system of writing, has a way of bypassing your conscious filter even more readily than regular language does. When you read a book, okay, at some point when you're reading, you stop thinking about the words and you start seeing pictures and you start smelling things, and it starts to, your brain gets hypnotized. You're basically getting hypnotized in a way into a hallucination, into a third eye vision of what's in that book. Some people would even say that when you're reading, you enter that state, you're entering an astral state and you're seeing things exactly as they should be seen in an astral state, because in the astral world, more or less what you imagine comes true almost instantly. If you look in your hand and you see a sword will appear in your hand in the astral state. Very much like a dream world. It's like lucid dreaming. Okay? So creating your own magical language can help you bypass that conscious filter even more. Now, you won't be able to read it as fluently necessarily unless you really commit it to memory, and I don't recommend doing that. This is something you're trying to do to completely bypass your conscious awareness. You want this to go way into the back of your awareness where the real magic happens, okay? Because almost every action you take in your life, actually every action you take in your life, is not a result really of conscious decision. It is a result of subconscious decision that is then verified, validated, and executed by conscious decision. So they've done scientific studies and they have proven that when you make a decision to go left or right, you only think that you're making that decision when you make it. You've actually made it before the situation arose. So in a very much the same way, what you're doing with this magical writing is you're trying to program that subconscious mind to react to this symbolism a little bit more. In fact, everything you do in magic is a way to bypass your conscious filter and get to that subconscious, that gooey center of you that really does the magic. Now, magic is a holistic thing, and I put it in a kind of cosmology like this. You have the mind, which is in the middle. You have the spirit, which is outside, and you have the body, which is inside. And I say inside for a reason. A lot of people think the real world is outside them. The real world is inside you. The real world is a subconscious construct that you've created out of the ether of the energy all around you. A table does not exist until you decide it is a table. The thing that makes the table there does exist. There's energy there, there's matter there. If you don't see the table and you land on it, you still land on it. But you don't know it's a table. It doesn't exist as a table until you turn around and see it as a table. And this is the interface between magic and hard reality. This is that interface where your mind interfaces with hard reality and creates a manifestation that does what you want. The trick to this is to create a place, a way of interaction for these holistic elements to come together and work together, okay? And writing is a very powerful way to do this. Ritual is a very powerful way to do this. Intonation is a powerful way to do this. Yes, you can work magic just by doing it in the astral world. That's true. But when you can combine them all together as a holistic thing, your magic goes from theoretical, imaginary, to a full-blown, thing, a full-blown manifestation. You have to remember, when you write a word on paper, you're taking an ethereal concept that you have in your mind and from the astral realm, and you're pulling it down out of the astral realm, passing it through the filter of your mind, and you are manifesting it into reality on page. And now, if you write the word fire on paper, the paper doesn't burst into flame, no. But if you take that paper and you give it to somebody, they'll look at it, they'll read it, and the fire that you had here, that you pulled through your rational mind, put on that paper, will now come from that paper, go into their rational mind, and enter the astral realm. You see how important written language is? This is why I will tell you that, yes, you can do all of this on a computer, but the written page that you handwrite, or the wand that you carved yourself, or the circle that you drew yourself, you can buy a ritual circle from somebody for $49.99, or you can get the paint and the cloth and make it yourself. And as you're making it, you're pumping your energy and your thoughts into that circle, and now it's your circle. It's not someone else's circle that you're using. It's your circle. People ask me, how is your magic so effective? This is one of the reasons it's so effective. It's not because I'm using someone else's magic, I'm using my magic. And part of making all of this your magic is to create your own personalized alphabet and language. This can also be used if you believe that your grimoire should be completely secret. You can write it completely in the secret language if you wish. I don't fall into that category. I believe that things should be secret. Some things should absolutely be secret, and some things should be public, and some things shouldn't be. You shouldn't be attached to them. My grimoire is very important to me, and it's a magical tool, and it's a very powerful magical tool, but if it burns in a fire, it burns in a fire. My magic's in here and in here. It's not in my grimoire. My grimoire is just another tool, like my altar. It can come and go. But there is something to be said for keeping things sacred and thus secret. Not everything should be like this. You need to have some things public so that you can contrast it with the things that are private. You should have a secret name, and you should use your secret language for your secret name. Your personalized language for your secret name whenever possible. This will add a layer of security, I guess you could say, kind of a layer of encryption. But it also keeps it more locked up in your head. Instead of having it as an English word that you can repeat, it's now a word in another language, or at least another kind of writing. So let me give you an example. I'm going to show you an example of my own current system. I've had several over the years, but this is the one I'm using now that I have kind of reinvented, remade from things that I used to do in the past. Let me get the right page here. Hold on. Let me bust this out really quick. Where is it? I think that's it. Yeah, okay. All right. So here you go. I'm going to stand up and get right in here. Good. So you can see it looks like, I don't know, something you'd see like in a Lovecraft, video game or something. They're very much alien hieroglyphic, symbols. They almost look like Chinese, or especially since I'm writing them vertical here. I have them in horizontal form here, and I'm doing some substitution to make sure I get the right things that I want. And each one of these represents a letter of the alphabet. And in fact, this is my first name. This is, written here. And kudos to you if you figure out what it is. You're gonna have to do some deep scrying for that, or maybe do some some looking. But now this to me isn't a way of hiding information. This is just a way, I don't use this to make my book of shadows secret. If I share this with you, I'm not afraid of you figuring this out. This is just my magical writing that I use that helps bypass my conscious intellect, and it goes right past that and into my subconscious mind, because I've refused to commit this very strongly to memory. So yeah, a couple of them I do recognize when I'm writing them, but this is meant to be an abstract. This is like a sigil. Each one of these letters is like a sigil. Each one of these letters is like a sigil. Each one of these letters is like a sigil, and they each do a different thing. You'll see I have a square around this, and this kind of represents that is a capital letter or an emphasized letter. I don't use it very often, only, because I kind of feel like, I kind of like the idea of runes where there is no upper and lowercase, it's just words, and that's how it works. You'll even see that I use the runic system of spacing, where I put a dot. And when I created this, I had a kind of set of rules in my mind where consonants are hard sounds, and so they're hard shapes. Instead of being circular or rounded, they're going to be triangles and squares. Vowels open your throat. And when you're opening your throat, it's a rounded sound. So I usually use rounder shapes. And some consonants are rounded sounding, like the letter J. It's harder than an A, it doesn't open your throat as much, but it's got a zh. You can make it a zh sound. It can become a softer sound. So I kind of give it a softer shape to it. So you can create your language with a couple of ground rules when you're creating these characters to represent these letters. You can have some ground rules in mind, so it doesn't just become a mishmash of symbols. Like if you work on your computer, you'll notice that I think it's webdings or something like that. The letters just become pictures of cars and trucks and weird random nonsense. That's not what I'm saying you should do. I mean, you could, but that's not my recommendation. My recommendation is you make them abstract symbols, but if you look at them, you see, I'm sure when you looked at my symbols, they had an element of soul to them. It wasn't just, here's a picture of a truck and this means T. You know what I mean? So when you're doing this, to create these, it's going to require, in my opinion, to do it correctly. Now you could just take a sketch pad and just start drawing symbols and then go from there. I recommend that you enter a deep state of trance, the same kind of trance you would use for scrying, the same kind of trance you would use for evoking a demon. Go way down to the theta gamma sync, get way down in there, and really just start seeing things. Start getting to that point where you're starting to see things in your mind, where you're getting visual artifacts and you're starting to see the astral realm a little bit. Get into that state and then give yourself the subconscious mental command, this is my magical alphabet. This is my magical alphabet, and intone it and chant it and get your brain keyed in. This is what's happening. Once you feel like you've entered that state and you've declared your intention, grab your pencil, grab your sheet of paper, and just start drawing your characters with those rules, helping guide you. And just start drawing characters. Don't worry about what you're drawing. Don't worry about, is this an A, a B, or a C? Just draw 23 to 30 characters. That's all you have to do. They don't have to mean anything yet. They're literally just, these are cool shapes that I feel this is what language should look like. That's kind of what you should be thinking. This is what my language looks like. And just go and just make them. Keep them simplistic on the simpler side. You could get really elaborate and make it so that each one is a pictograph that's like all perfectly drawn. That's fine if that's what you want to do, if you want to make them more like glyphs. But at that point, you're wasting time, in my opinion, because when you use this later for writing, That means when you write it, it's going to take forever to just write a word if you got to draw a picture for each word. You can do it. It's not that you can't. This is your magic. Make it what works for you. But in my opinion, you should keep them simple and think about what people need to be able to read it and to use it. You want to make it just a few lines at a time, and you want it to have some kind of flow and shape and consistency. So just go and create 23 to 30 characters and keep repeating to yourself, this is my magical alphabet, or whatever mantra you want to use. Really get into that zone and do it. Once you're done, you're going to have 23 to 30 characters, which, as far as you know, don't mean anything yet. Now, I got news for you. Your subconscious mind's already decided. Okay, your subconscious mind has already made the decision. Once you started doing this, while you're watching this video, your subconscious mind has probably already started picking out the words and things that you want to, that you want to do with these letters. Okay, your subconscious mind is already just, while you're watching this, you're already doing it. You just don't know it. So then once you have all these picked out, you're going to write out an alphabet. Just a simple alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You can make it in boxes, however you want to do it, so you keep it organized. And you're going to transpose. You're going to, here's your A, and just above it, you'll put your symbol for A. And this is going to be your what do you want to call it? Your cheat sheet. This is going to be your, this is how you're going to keep things recorded so that you can use them later. So you put them all and you transcribe it all so that you have A to A, B to B, and just go through and intuitively pick the ones that make sense. For A, if you like the way A's are shaped in English, go with a triangle or go with the triangular shape. Make that your A. For B, if you like the fact that it's got two swooshes, well, maybe it looks more like an M, or it's like a catty corner. It's a B like that. Look for things that tell you that is an A, that is a B, that is a C, and so on. Now, also when you're doing your substitution like that, I would recommend personally, because this also makes it a little bit more magical, it's a little bit more simple. Remember, your subconscious mind works more with symbols than with exacting details. So your subconscious mind likes sounds, your subconscious mind likes intonation, your subconscious mind doesn't like complicated gobbledygook. And you know how you know this? There's studies that have been done over and over again where you can read a word that's missing half the letters and you know what the word means. Okay, it's absolutely, you can take all the vowels out of a word, and you can read that word most people can read it without any hesitation. You can take half the letters out and not even notice that they're missing, especially words like the. You can take out the E, and some people still read the. They don't even realize they've missed an E, or is, things like that. It's pretty amazing, really. Your subconscious mind just skips over those tiny details. So what I'm suggesting to you is you don't need to make a character for every letter in the alphabet. You can actually just make letters that represent groups of them sometimes. So for example, C, K, and Q, they all make a K sound. You could substitute and completely get rid of 2 of those letters from your alphabet so they no longer exist in that alphabet anymore. I got rid of, well, I'm not going to tell you, but I got rid of most of those sounds, and I picked one and I kept that one. And that one sound is used in place wherever I would normally use the letter. I would use that one instead. So if I was replacing Q, when I did Queen, it would be C or K, whatever one I decided to stick with. And that would be what I would use when I write Queen. It would be C-U-E-E-N instead of Q-U-E-E-N. The same thing would go for if I replace C, and I wanted to write the name Cecilia, okay, which starts with a C. I might use the letter S, okay, because it's an S sound. I might just make it Cecilia. Or I might use whatever letter I've substituted for C. I might use a Q or a K. And this is stuff that I know I'm doing, okay? I've simplified my alphabet down to just what is necessary to get meaning across. You can also, in English, we do a lot of confusing things where we use vowels in different ways. Or let's say we use 2 letters together that makes the same sound as a single letter, like in Malphas, right? The demon Malphas is M-A-L-P-H-A-S. Do you really need to write P-H, or can you just write F, The demon actually doesn't care. The demon just wants you to get it right and make sure the intention's correct. It's just a way of saying it. In my experience, demons don't require that your sigil have their name written on it at all. You can just write their sigil and focus on that. It's really whatever, gets you to that point of contact. It doesn't matter. They do like things to be done in a way that fits their calling card. And I apologize for the train going by. I live near a train track, so if it blocks the sound too much, give me 1 second, I'll let it go by. in case he boops the horn again. All right, I think we'll be cool. When you're doing this, you are trying to evoke a demon with the sounds and with the intent. A demon doesn't necessarily care if you make their sigil out of the metal that they like. I mean, they do like it. They like the attempt. They like the attention, and some will like it more than others. Some don't care. Some, for me, Lucifer doesn't require any form of ritual, any form of spell, any form of anything. All I have to do is hit a trance state, stare into a mirror for a few minutes, and I can evoke him. And if he wants to come, he'll come through like that. It's like that. Sorry, he'll come through very quickly, and I'll start invoking him. It's not even an evocation, it's an invocation. He starts talking to me through the mirror. So demons do like you to use their proper spelling sometimes, but in my experience, what matters is where you're going in here and out here. It matters what you're doing with your holistic mind, body, soul apparatus and how you're invoking them. So you can use these magical symbols for their names. You can use these magical sigils in spells. If you work with chaos magic, you already know what a sigil is, you know how they work. You can use this as another form of sigil, because essentially what you're doing when you're making a sigil is you're taking the alphabet and you're simplifying it into weird shapes, and you're basically making like a word jumble shape out of the letters, and then you're making it look good so it doesn't look like letters anymore. Well, this is basically the same thing. This can actually be used to make sigils with. You can take this alphabet you've made and arrange them and make it a word jumble and mix and splice them together, and you can save yourself a little bit of time if you've programmed your mind to subconsciously recognize these a little bit. I don't recommend that you memorize this language. I recommend that you keep it just out of knowledge. That is, you'll remember some of them. It should be like a waking dream. You remember a little bit of it, but it's not always with you. It's not like you can write fluently in it. This should be something that you have to go back to your cheat sheet and use that to transpose as a kind of code. And I like doing it that way because then when I read my spell later, I have no idea what I said. But my subconscious mind, that part of me knows. When like the thing I was showing you, I knew my name just because I know that's where I put my name. I don't recognize half the characters, but my subconscious mind goes, that's your name. And the same thing with the other things I wrote there. I have no idea. I don't remember what I wrote there. I'd have to go back with my cheat sheet and figure it out. It wouldn't take long because it's not that hard to figure out, but I'd have to do that to figure out what I wrote. And this is part of the power of it, because this short circuits your conscious mind. It cuts right through it and goes to your subconscious, and that's where you work from. Okay. So there's one other method you could use to create this language for yourself, and I do highly recommend this one. I have never done it, but I have it on good authority that it's a good way to do it. You would contact well, for me, King Paimon suggested that I do it myself, but I got the very distinct impression that he was good at this. You can evoke King Paimon and maybe ask him through soul travel to take you to his place of residence, or a place that is mutually enjoyable for you, and you can sit down on a nice throw pillow, and he'll bring in some dancing girls and a scribe who's going to go through the new alphabet with you, and he'll teach it to you, and you can write it down step by step in your journal. And that's an important step too. If I didn't say it already, you need to have a magical journal, you need to have a grimoire, and it should be in physical form. It should not be typed out on your computer. That is absolutely a waste of energy for that. I'm not saying you can't keep notes on the computer. I'm not saying you can't keep spells on the computer. I'm saying what matters should be written in hand. It should be written in ink, and it should be something that has been manifested into hard reality and that is yours. This is absolutely fundamental for advanced study. If you're not doing this, you'll never get past a certain point, in my personal opinion. I think using magic as a form of writing is very important. Now, the alternative is to go to a demon of choice and have them do this for you. Off the top of my head, I have King Paimon. He's very good with knowledge, artwork. Then you have Thorne, who is right in his description in the Goetia, talks about languages. And there's several others that are outside the Goetia, and there's probably more in the Goetia. I don't have the Goetia memorized. It's 72 beings. I just don't have room up here for all that. That's why I have it written down. But there are 72, and I'm sure there's a few in there that would be glad to teach you language, okay? Feel free to look it up. There's probably some that would do it that aren't specifically given language. In other words, when you look in the Goetia, they're, when it says what they do, those are the things they do best. That doesn't mean that's all they do. And a lot of the time what they say they do best is in code. If something says they build walls, well, granted, in the story of King Solomon's work that he used these demons to build the temples and stuff, maybe that's what they meant. But really what that represents is defenses and structure. They're building structure and defense. If it says builds walls, what does a wall do? It keeps things out or keeps things in. So you're creating containment, you're creating structure, you're creating defenses. So when you have a demon that you want to work with, look for one that has something to do with language, with art, with knowledge. Any one of those things would probably be useful here, and ask them. And honestly, I would start with King Paimon. Anyway, if you're new to demonolatry, start with King Paimon and say, tell me, how can I do this? And if he can't do it, he'll bring in someone who can. Trust me. He is Lucifer's right-hand man in hell. He will make sure that you get connected with the right person if it's his will. So that's pretty much how you make them. How I would use them, I wouldn't use them to write every page of my grimoire. Now, you might want to keep your grimoire super secret. I understand that. You might want to put it all in code, and you might want to go through and write it all out in your secret language. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying I don't do that. I use the magical language as a kind of intermediary sigil. It's not a full sigil, but it's not English. Okay, it's one step closer to being a sigil. And so if I am writing a spell, let's say it's a short spell, maybe it's a permanent spell, maybe it's something I want to have in paper, in written form, and I want to almost do like what the Japanese do and the Chinese do. If you study any culture besides Western culture, the Chinese and the Japanese, they have a form of magic, like a Taoist priest or monk or whatever. They'll do in calligraphy a beautiful character, kanji, a character of something that is spiritual. Maybe it's one of the I Ching, maybe it's a word, and whatever it is, that character has more than just a vowel sound, because the way they work with their language is more like, Egyptian hieroglyphics. Each one of those things generally has a meaning, unless you're talking about simplified Japanese, what they use now, what is it, katakana, whatever it is. That's more like an alphabet. But the old way is pictograms, and they each have much more meaning than just a word. They can each mean different things, and they're often or always originated from an image. Like maybe it was a turtle at one point and now it means slow, whatever it would be. And it's been simplified down so it doesn't even look like a turtle anymore. Well, that's a sigil. That's a sigil to me, like almost exactly. And they'll do spells where they'll write their spell on the paper, either in the form of one character or one image or a full sentence or a full, book. And that is a spell to them. J.B. Perry on Dark Sorcery has a few videos on this, and I hope he does some more about this, but it's very similar concept. You can write a book, and your will can go through into the book and become reality. So that's just something to think about, how you could use these things. I'm going to let you experiment with it and figure it out on your own a little bit. Like I said, this needs to be your magic, not just mine. Don't do what I do, but follow the principles, follow the formula, and do it for yourself. Talk to demons, have them guide you. That's the most useful and effective way. And if they're not teaching you, maybe they're leading you to me to have, to be told that. So be aware of that. All right, guys, this video is going to be unlisted for now. I am trial ballooning all these videos. I'm just going to be sharing them in groups where I know that my work is appreciated. So if you do like this, please give me a comment. Please give me a like. Give me a subscribe if you want, because at some point I'll probably be releasing these openly. And that's an easy way to stay tuned. But for now, make sure you also follow me on Facebook, follow me in whatever groups I'm in. Make sure that you're aware of when I'm posting things. Go to my blog. My blog's in the description down below. My blog has been blacklisted by Facebook, and this was one of the alternatives that I believe Vine has been pointing me towards, is to start using YouTube a little bit more. Now, I apologize for the length of this video. If this was too long, and you couldn't get anything out of it, I apologize. I'll try to keep some of them shorter. I kind of feel like the sweet spot for Magickal, not Magickal, but for videos is about 10 or 15 minutes long. So I'll try to keep them a little shorter when I can. But until next time, this is D.H. Thorne, Mind the Shadows.